This is Trek Zone's That Time When.
Welcome to another edition of That Time When. Matt Miller with you in the Trek Zone studio. Well, we are fast approaching the end of 2022 as I record this, and fast approaching the end of That Time When as a podcast series. It's being merged into Trek Zone TV, which is going to be a live, fast channel on the Trek Zone YouTube channel. FAST stands for Free Ad-Supported Streaming TV. It's what all of the broadcasters are doing around the world to try and keep eyeballs on their product. Obviously, I'm not a broadcaster from somewhere around the world. I'm just little old Trek Zone pumping out for 20 years next year. But we have plenty of content to show you. In fact, I've programmed the first week of Trek Zone TV, 174 hours, and there's not a single repeat, which is absolutely incredible and mind-blowing, really, when you think about it, because I'm just doing this each and every day. Now, you are here watching this episode because you wanted to catch up on That Time When we celebrated the 25th anniversary of Voyager. This was from the start of 2020. It was another one of those podcasts where we focused on the franchise that really got me started with Trek Zone. So let's check it out now. This is That Time When we celebrated the 25th anniversary of Star Trek Voyager.
It's a big thanks to Rode for gearing us up for season 2020. So let's get into it. Mr. Christopher Jones from Trek FM, good afternoon to you, sir.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while since we talked, but I think this is one of those occasions where I do need to hop on mic again for a change and talk about one of the Star Trek series on its anniversary. It's
incredible because you're so busy running Trek FM these days that you don't get really a chance to jump in front of the mic.
That's true. I'm more busy producing magazines these days and trying to keep up with Trek FM in the background. As for mic time, yeah, that's a bit rare, though I hope to change that this year.
Well, of course, you can find Chris and the Trek FM stream at Trek FM on Twitter and Facebook. You can find me at Miramat86 on Twitter. 25 years ago, Star Trek Voyager first premiered.
That is really difficult to believe. I remember when the show was in development. I remember when it premiered. I even remember the process of getting my hands on the videotape so I could watch Caretaker, because we couldn't get Voyager in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where I was going to university at the time, because we didn't have a UPN affiliate. And I remember what was happening in my life at the time, and then I look at where I am now, and it's on occasions such as this where a franchise that you love has a milestone, such as the 25th anniversary of a series, that you realize how much time in your overall life has passed. And it's hard to believe. It can be a bit scary, but then again, you feel very nostalgic for the past. And it's fun.
That nostalgia is really strong. As I said in the opener there, we were in San Francisco when it premiered, obviously on UPN, during our holiday. It's incredible.
Very lucky.
Yeah, amazing. And just, we're just flicking on and oh, look, Star Trek's on. Oh, it's the new show. So obviously I was a lot younger then, had more hair as it
Yeah,
were.
I was going to say, maybe it wasn't a coincidence. Maybe the Caretaker pulled you there so that you could see the premiere.
This is very possible. Well, Voyager, and this first season of the show got off to a little bit of a rocky start. Obviously, it's the first one of the spin-offs that wasn't on, it wasn't syndicated, first-run syndication. It was on a broadcast network with very limited visibility across the states. As you say, it wasn't even on you didn't have a local affiliate.
Yeah, my numbers might be wrong because this is just completely off the top of my head, but I feel like I remember that the coverage for UPN was roughly 70% of the country. I could be wrong, but small cities like Tuscaloosa did not have affiliates. Many of them did not have affiliates. I'm from Birmingham, which is in the middle of Alabama. It's the largest city, and Alabama did have an affiliate. My father was still living there at the time, and he was able to record it for me, and I could pick up the videotape from him so I could still see it. But we went through this problem for quite a while, and I think it was sometime in the second season, they started allowing Voyager to be aired in a sort of syndication in cities that didn't have a UPN affiliate, because we were getting Voyager in Tuscaloosa on the CBS affiliate for a while, and then it went away again. So we got teased a little bit, like, here's what it would be like if you could actually watch this show. And then we were cast out into the cold once again for a while. And then eventually we actually did get UPN coverage down there.
Obviously, it was a decision made from a business perspective to try and drive maybe one of these early indicators of how streaming platforms would go and bring the revenue in-house and let's do it all ourselves. When streaming started,
it's a good thought.
Same sort of thing again. It's syndicated out. Now everything's coming back in-house. We see that with Discovery and Picard and all the new Star Trek shows that are coming. But I think it really hurt Voyager overall in terms of those all-important ratings. Suddenly a Star Trek series was hanging on to those ratings reports every day.
Yeah, that's something that I think carried through and hurt Voyager from a storytelling standpoint throughout its run. And I think also hurt Enterprise, and is ultimately the reason Enterprise was canceled after 4 seasons. I think the fact that they were paying attention to all that on Voyager helped Deep Space Nine behind the scenes to be able to just tell the story it wanted to tell. I also wonder sometimes if The Next Generation would have been as successful as it was had they formed this network years before and tried to use TNG. And now today we're looking at what they're doing with Discovery, but it's a different game because for the most part, you're not geographically restricted from being able to watch the show on a streaming service. It's up to you if you want to spend the money to do it. With some things like short treks, we are geographically limited because they're not showing them outside the US and Canada until later on anyway. We still don't have the second season. But your point about the streaming service, yeah, it's very interesting because we're sort of seeing two different, we're seeing a similar concept with two different approaches to it at two different points in time, but with the same intellectual property, the same franchise.
Do you think also too that moving straight into another series off the back of The Next Generation was necessarily a good idea? Or, we look back on it now and think of it as the golden age of Star Trek. But we're sort of recycling, as it were, the writers and the executive team to come up with a whole other show and what turned out to be 7 seasons more of original storytelling at 26 episodes a year.
Yeah, so you're kind of asking about the idea of franchise fatigue in a sense, right? But also creative fatigue on the part of the people writing the episodes and producing the show. I don't know. I sometimes think that, but then again, if I put myself back in that place and I remember the excitement that we all had watching the later seasons of The Next Generation and how exciting it was when Deep Space Nine started, and how Deep Space Nine was quite different from The Next Generation, especially from season 2 onward, or the end of season 1 when it kind of found its legs. And a lot of fans were not quite on board with DS9, but they wanted more Star Trek. And Voyager was a return to that idea of a ship visiting new planets. And in a way, it was more of a throwback to the original series because they really were going to new places each week, whereas The Next Generation had become sort of like, here's how we maintain this federation that we've built, and we're going to fly around and we're going to talk to diplomats and we're going to solve problems on the worlds that are part of the federation, but we're not always exploring new things in terms of alien races or civilizations. So Voyager was sort of a mix to me of The Next Generation and trying to recapture the magic of the original series. I didn't feel at the time like it was a mistake. I felt like this is very exciting that we have so much new Star Trek, and they're doing these great things on the big screen with Generations, which is a film that I know a lot of fans don't like, but I quite like a lot. And First Contact, which is one of my favorite Star Trek films, one of my favorite movies in general. And DS9, as anyone who listens to Trek at Film knows, and anyone who follows me on Twitter knows, DS9 is my favorite Star Trek series, but it wasn't always my favorite Star Trek series. It has become my favorite series as I've gotten older, as I've lived life, as I'm better position to appreciate the message of the story and what the writers were doing on that show and the complexity of the writing. And at the time, I think I was probably more excited about the launch of Voyager than I was what was happening on DS9. So I don't think it was necessarily a mistake in the 90s. Now, I do think going from Voyager straight into Enterprise was maybe a mistake, and they should have taken a breather.
And I think the biggest thing was that nothing was commissioned at the end of DS9 in 99. Obviously, UPN didn't want to fund a second Star Trek, big budget, as it were, big budget television at the same time as...
To run alongside Voyager.
Yeah.
Like doing 2 at once, yeah. Although now let's do 7 at the same time. Let's make as much as we possibly can.